Right now, most people think choosing a browser is simple. You download whatever came pre-installed on your device, maybe install something popular from YouTube recommendations, and move on with your life. But in 2026, browsers are no longer just tools for opening websites. They have quietly become surveillance platforms, advertising engines, AI data collectors, behavioral tracking systems, and in some cases, security risks disguised as convenience. And the scary part is that most users have absolutely no idea how much information they are giving away every single day just by browsing the internet normally. A few years ago, browsers mainly competed on speed. One browser loaded pages faster, another used less RAM, another had a cleaner interface. But today, the browser war has changed completely. Now companies are fighting over data, AI integration, ecosystem lock-in, and user behavior analysis. Your browser knows what you search, what you buy, what videos you watch, what passwords you store, what websites you visit at night, where you live, what device you use, what you click on, and even how long your mouse hovers over certain content. In many ways, your browser knows more about you than your closest friends do. And this is why some browsers that millions of people still use in 2026 are becoming dangerous choices. Not because they instantly destroy your computer, but because they slowly normalize invasive tracking, weak privacy, aggressive monetization, and questionable security practices while pretending to help users. Some browsers have become bloated with unnecessary AI tools nobody asked for. Others are turning the web into an advertisement delivery machine. And some are simply falling behind in security while competitors move forward. So in this video, we're going to talk about the browsers you should seriously reconsider using in 2026, why they became problematic, what changed over the years, and what smarter alternatives are replacing them. Because the browser you choose today affects almost everything you do online. Let's start with the browser that still dominates the internet: Google Chrome. This is the browser billions of people continue using automatically without thinking twice. Chrome became popular because it was fast, simple, and worked well across nearly every website. For years, it felt unbeatable. But in 2026, Chrome has become one of the biggest examples of convenience replacing privacy. The biggest problem with Chrome is no longer performance, it's data collection. Google's entire business model depends on advertising and user profiling. That means Chrome exists inside a massive ecosystem designed to learn as much as possible about your behavior. Every search, every website visit, every synced password, every browsing habit can feed into Google's broader data systems. Even though Google says it protects users, the reality is that Chrome is deeply connected to one of the largest advertising machines in human history. And over the last few years, users started noticing something else. Chrome became heavier. RAM usage kept increasing. Background processes multiplied. Experimental AI features started appearing everywhere. Search suggestions became more aggressive. Syncing became harder to avoid. And many people realized they weren't really controlling the browser anymore. The browser was controlling them. One of the biggest controversies came from advertising technology changes that weakened traditional ad blockers. Many privacy-focused extensions became less effective because of new extension policies. Critics argued this was less about security and more about protecting Google's advertising ecosystem. Suddenly, users understood something important. When a browser company also controls advertising, conflicts of interest become unavoidable. Chrome in 2026 still works. Millions will continue using it. But if privacy matters to you at all, if you care about reducing tracking, or if you simply want more control over your own browsing experience, Chrome is no longer the safe default choice people once believed it was. Next is Microsoft Edge, which surprised many people by becoming technically impressive over the past few years. Edge improved speed, efficiency, compatibility, and battery usage. In some cases, it even outperformed Chrome. But Microsoft created a different problem. Instead of focusing on a clean browsing experience, Edge slowly became overloaded with promotions, AI integrations, shopping tools, Microsoft account pressure, and constant attempts to keep users inside Microsoft's ecosystem. A lot of people describe modern Edge as a browser that never stops trying to sell something. Open the browser and there are news feeds. Search something and AI appears. Download another browser and Microsoft warns you not to switch. Use Google services and Microsoft pushes Bing. Open a new tab and you see recommendations, widgets, shopping suggestions, and personalized content systems tracking your engagement. And then there's the privacy issue. Microsoft has dramatically expanded data collection across Windows and Edge integration. Many users feel uncomfortable with how deeply connected Edge has become to the operating system itself. It's no longer just a browser. It's part of a larger behavioral ecosystem designed to increase engagement and keep users inside Microsoft services for as long as possible. In 2026, Edge represents a broader trend happening across the tech industry. Companies are no longer satisfied with giving users tools. They want ecosystems. They want dependency. They want users permanently connected to accounts, cloud services, AI systems, subscriptions, and recommendation engines. And browsers are becoming the front door to that entire strategy. Now let's talk about Opera, because this browser has one of the strangest reputations online. Many users still think Opera is an underrated hidden gem. It looks modern, has built-in tools, and markets itself aggressively toward gamers and younger audiences. But Opera's privacy reputation became increasingly controversial over time. One major issue is transparency. Privacy experts have repeatedly questioned how Opera handles user data and how trustworthy its marketing claims really are. The browser promotes features like free VPN services, but many users don't realize these are often proxy-style systems rather than full independent VPN protections. That distinction matters because marketing language can create a false sense of security. Opera also leaned heavily into gimmicky features over the years. Crypto integrations, AI assistance, sidebar distractions, gaming branding, and experimental tools started turning the browser into a cluttered platform rather than a focused browsing experience. And while flashy features may look exciting in advertisements, security professionals often warn that unnecessary complexity increases attack surfaces and creates more opportunities for vulnerabilities. Another concern is ownership and trust. Over time, more people began asking difficult questions about where user data flows, how it is managed, and whether the company's privacy promises match reality. In 2026, trust matters more than ever. Users are becoming more educated about digital privacy, and many are moving away from browsers that rely heavily on marketing instead of transparency. Then we have browsers that are simply becoming outdated or irrelevant. Some people still use old versions of Firefox forks, abandoned Chromium projects, or niche browsers with tiny development teams. And while smaller browsers can sometimes be excellent, there's also real danger in using software that cannot keep up with modern web security threats. The internet in 2026 is far more hostile than it was 10 years ago. Phishing attacks are smarter, browser exploits are more advanced, malicious websites are harder to detect, AI-generated scams are everywhere. Fake login pages look identical to real ones. Browser security updates are no longer optional. They are essential survival tools. This means using unsupported or poorly maintained browsers is becoming genuinely risky. A browser without active security development is like leaving your house unlocked in a dangerous neighborhood. Maybe nothing happens immediately, but eventually something will. And this brings us to one of the most important problems affecting browsers in 2026: AI integration. Almost every major browser company is now racing to embed AI directly into browsing experiences. Some people love this. Others are deeply uncomfortable with it. But regardless of where you stand, AI integration introduces serious questions about privacy, accuracy, and data usage. When AI tools summarize your web pages, generate responses, organize browsing habits, or predict your interests, enormous amounts of personal information are being processed somewhere. Users are increasingly asking, where is this data going? Is it stored? Is it analyzed? Is it used for training? Is it shared across services? Most companies provide long, complicated privacy documents few people actually read. And AI systems themselves are not always reliable. They hallucinate information, misunderstand context, and sometimes expose sensitive data accidentally. Yet browsers are rushing these features into products because every company fears falling behind in the AI race. The result is that users are becoming experimental subjects in a massive technological competition. Another major issue in 2026 is browser monopolization. Chromium, the engine behind Chrome, now powers a huge portion of the internet. Edge uses Chromium. Opera uses Chromium. Many smaller browsers use Chromium too. On one hand, this improves compatibility. Websites work consistently across browsers. But on the other hand, it creates dangerous centralization. When one engine dominates the web, one company gains enormous influence over internet standards. Critics argue this reduces competition and weakens the open web itself. If Google changes how Chromium handles extensions, advertisements, tracking systems, or APIs, huge parts of the browser ecosystem are affected immediately. This is one reason why many privacy advocates continue supporting Mozilla Firefox despite its struggles. Firefox remains one of the few major browsers not built on Chromium. It represents diversity in the browser ecosystem. And while Firefox has its own criticisms and management controversies, many users still see it as one of the healthier alternatives available in 2026. But even Firefox users are divided. Some believe Mozilla lost focus over the years. Others dislike certain political messaging or experimental features. Some feel Firefox became slower at innovation compared to competitors. Still, from a privacy perspective, Firefox remains significantly more trusted than many mainstream alternatives. Then there's the rise of ultra-privacy-focused browsers like Brave. Brave exploded in popularity by aggressively blocking trackers and advertisements by default. Many users loved the speed improvements and privacy protections. But Brave also generated controversy because of crypto integrations, token systems, and certain advertising experiments. Some people appreciated Brave's attempts to reinvent online advertising. Others thought the browser became too focused on crypto culture and monetization experiments. This reflects a larger truth about browsers in 2026. There is no perfect option anymore. Every browser involves trade-offs. Some sacrifice privacy for convenience. Some sacrifice simplicity for features. Some prioritize speed over customization. Others prioritize ideology over mainstream usability. The important thing is understanding what trade-offs you are making instead of blindly trusting branding. One especially dangerous trend happening now is browser fingerprinting. Even if users block cookies, websites can still identify devices using subtle characteristics like screen size, fonts, installed extensions, hardware configurations, language settings, and browser behavior patterns. Modern tracking systems have become incredibly sophisticated. This means many users who think they are private online actually are not. Some browsers claim to protect users while still leaking huge amounts of identifying information through fingerprinting techniques. Privacy in 2026 requires much more than simply enabling incognito mode. In fact, incognito mode mainly prevents local history storage. It does not magically make you anonymous online. And speaking of misconceptions, one of the biggest lies people still believe is that I have nothing to hide. Privacy is not about hiding criminal behavior. It's about maintaining personal autonomy in a digital world increasingly designed to monitor, predict, and influence human behavior. Your browsing data can reveal your fears, interests, health concerns, financial situation, political interests, emotional state, and personal relationships. Even harmless data becomes powerful when collected at massive scale. That's why browser choices matter far more than most people realize. Another browser category people should be cautious about in 2026 is AI-first browsers promising revolutionary experiences. New startups are constantly appearing with claims that AI will completely reinvent browsing forever. Some of these ideas are genuinely innovative, but many are also collecting huge amounts of behavioral data while hiding behind futuristic marketing language. Users should be extremely careful about trusting new browsers without established security reputations. A beautiful interface and viral marketing campaign do not guarantee responsible data practices. History repeatedly shows that tech companies often prioritize growth before privacy. There's also the issue of browser extensions. Even if you use a good browser, bad extensions can completely destroy your security. Some extensions secretly collect browsing activity, inject advertisements, track user behavior, or even steal session data. In recent years, malicious extensions became harder to detect because many disguise themselves as productivity tools, coupon systems, AI assistants, or visual customization apps. This is why cybersecurity experts increasingly recommend using fewer extensions overall. Every extension effectively becomes another layer of trust inside your browser environment. If that trust is misplaced, your privacy disappears instantly. And now we need to talk about mobile browsers, because this is where things become even more complicated. Most people spend more time browsing on phones than computers now. Yet mobile browsers often provide even less transparency about data collection and tracking behavior. On Android devices, Chrome dominates heavily because of Google integration. On Apple devices, Safari controls enormous market share because of iOS restrictions and ecosystem convenience. Both companies present themselves as privacy-conscious in marketing campaigns, but both are also deeply tied to massive ecosystems built around user engagement and service integration. Safari generally performs better than Chrome from a privacy perspective, especially with anti-tracking protections. But Apple still collects significant ecosystem data across devices and services. Meanwhile, Chrome on Android remains deeply connected to Google's broader advertising infrastructure. And here's something many people still don't realize in 2026. Browsers influence not only privacy, but also how information itself is presented to users. Search suggestions, recommendation systems, AI summaries, news feeds, and algorithmic content shaping are increasingly integrated directly into browsing experiences. In other words, browsers are becoming gatekeepers of perception. The content you see online is no longer purely neutral or chronological. It is filtered, prioritized, summarized, ranked, and personalized. That means browsers are quietly influencing how billions of people understand the world around them. This is one reason many users are returning to simpler browsing setups. Minimal browsers, fewer accounts, less synchronization, fewer AI assistants, more manual control. After years of hyper-connected ecosystems, a growing number of people are realizing that convenience sometimes comes with hidden costs. In fact, digital minimalism is becoming one of the biggest tech trends of 2026. Users are exhausted. Constant notifications, AI tools, recommendation systems, personalized feeds, and engagement optimization have created a kind of technological fatigue. Browsers sit at the center of this entire experience because they are the primary gateway to the internet itself. So when we say stop using these browsers, the deeper message is really this: stop blindly trusting technology companies to protect your interests automatically. Because most companies are ultimately protecting their own business models first. That doesn't mean you need to become paranoid or disconnect from the internet entirely, but it does mean becoming more intentional. Read privacy settings carefully. Use reputable browsers. Limit unnecessary extensions. Turn off features you don't need. Avoid storing every password inside one ecosystem blindly. Understand what data syncing actually does. Learn basic digital security habits. And most importantly, stop assuming popularity equals safety. Some of the most widely used browsers in the world became dominant because of default installation deals, ecosystem integration, and corporate power, not necessarily because they are best for users. The browser landscape of 2026 is very different from the early internet era. Back then, browsers were mostly neutral tools. Today, they are strategic platforms connected to AI systems, advertising networks, cloud ecosystems, subscription services, behavioral analytics, and massive data economies. And the companies building them are competing for something much more valuable than browser market share. They are competing for user attention, behavioral data, ecosystem control, and long-term dependency. That's why choosing the right browser now matters more than ever before. If a browser constantly pushes advertisements disguised as recommendations, maybe it's time to reconsider using it. If a browser weakens ad blockers while profiting from advertising, maybe that conflict matters. If a browser keeps adding AI systems you never asked for, maybe it's worth questioning why. If a browser demands deep account integration for basic functionality, maybe convenience is costing more than you realize. The internet itself is changing rapidly. AI-generated content is flooding websites. Scams are becoming harder to identify. Tracking systems are becoming more advanced. Browser-based attacks are evolving, and privacy laws still struggle to keep up with modern technology. In this environment, your browser is no longer just an app. It's your digital home, your security layer, your identity gateway, your communication platform, your financial access point, and your personal information vault all combined into one piece of software. That means browser decisions deserve far more attention than most people give them. So before 2026 moves even further into this AI-driven, hyper-personalized internet era, take a serious look at what browser you are actually using every day. Ask yourself who built it, how they make money, what data they collect, what incentives drive them, and whether their priorities truly align with yours. Because the uncomfortable truth is that many browsers today are no longer designed primarily to serve users. Users themselves have become the product. And once you understand that, you start looking at browsers very differently forever.